As you all probably know, we have filed litigation, and we're going to be fundraising for the expenses as that goes on. And so that's about the time I had here, and Jody is going to give us a presentation on our year in review of what we've been up to. We formed last year at this time, so this is our annual membership meeting. So we've just been at this just over a year, and things are picking up steam. So, and my name is Terry.
Hi, Terry.
I'll introduce myself. I grew up in Lincoln. We lived here we moved here about 3 years ago. We became grandparents, and we stewarded a farm just outside of Griswold, right off the river. That has been a blessing beyond my imagination.
There are years that ask questions and years that answer. When no co-op dumped 265,000 gallons of nitrogen fertilizer into the East Nishnabotna River in March of 2024, we were all left with a lot of questions. One was very big. What will be the repercussions for the 5th largest fish kill in Iowa's history? The question lingered for a year, and the answer never came. That is when a few of us gathered and we asked another question. Is there energy to form a grassroots organization focused on water quality in Southwest Iowa? We held a meeting and had support from people and organizations who have been following the new co-ops bill and were equally as appalled by the lack of response. Those who have been working on Iowa's water quality are actually in attendance here today. And John Wanamaker from Iowa Public Radio was there at the very beginning. Some of our original attendees are still here supporting us. The energy was there and the answer was yes. So we proceeded with forming our 501c3, the Nishnabotna Water Defenders, in March of 2025. We were not only seeking justice for the death of 50 miles of our river, but we held a larger mission to advocate, educate, and when necessary, litigate for safe, clean water for all of us. And our nonprofit was born. I have the pleasure of telling you about the last year for the Nishnabotna Water Defenders. Our first action came very quickly. We attended a DNR hearing on alum applications in 2 popular lakes in our watershed that had been plagued with beach closures and harmful algal blooms. This application was meant to bind phosphorus in the lakes and sink it to the bottom. We did our homework, spoke to the experts in preparation, and made our public statements and asked more questions. 5 of us were there, which was the majority of the attendance, at the cost of $1 million per application, with repeated applications required and paid for by you and I, with no plans to address the root cause of the problems, the treatments proceeded. This set the stage for the work we have cut out for us. In April, we held our first official meeting with Chris Jones in partnership with Southwest Indivisible and had a great turnout. Later that month, on Earth Day, we had a park cleanup in Red Oak, Iowa, with 40 high school students, where I had them raptured with a talk on water quality, and I introduced nitrate testing, starting our community science education with free nitrate testing kits began. Later that month, an attendee of our earlier meeting in April with Chris Jones invited us to facilitate a listening session in Shenandoah, where we heard concerns about water from the community members. In May, we were invited to table at an event in Sydney. What had a small turnout, but we met Kevin, who recently just joined our board, proving that you don't always need a really big turnout to make a meaningful difference. Later that month, we had a park cleanup in Rat Park in Shenandoah, which actually was an event that was formulated out of that listening session in Shenandoah. And one of our greatest champions at that event was the Page County conservationist, who actually, hi Mom, who actually provided a trailer and a hand washing station, stayed for the entire event, which in June, Samantha, our very own water scientist and board member, took two groups to the river to demonstrate advanced water chemistry testing, something she does every month on her own diligently, and logs for community science. That same month, we officially partnered with Nitrate Watch, and we are now able to have co-branded Nitrate Watch kits that we can send out to people who want them. There's an example of that on our table back there. The AG quietly settled the case with New Co-op in July for a pittance with no input from community members. The settlement, $50,000 paid to the state and $50,000 paid to Montgomery County Conservation Board for special projects. That summer actually, we also were tabling at farmers markets, continuing to push for community water testing through Nitrate Watch free test kits. The settlement got us back in the news, starting with our press release. In August, the CISWA report was presented to the public. Iowa was getting a lot of press with their water quality, and the Nishnabotna Water Defenders were there in attendance at Drake, where they rolled out that report. Also, when that day was when we learned more about the closure of the statewide water sensor monitoring network. That's just getting more looming here coming July 1st. Des Moines had watering bans due to the inability of the system to have remove the high nitrate levels. We held a meeting in August to discuss plans and discuss the settlement and next steps with our membership. Out of that, we decided to petition the Montgomery County Conservation Board to use their settlement funds for projects related to water monitoring and education. And although we really did feel defeated, we worked to promote the work of other fantastic organizations who were responding to water quality issues throughout the state. And we got more press coverage then. We were invited to do also a watershed talk through the Isaac Walton League. During that watershed talk, Neil Hamilton of Drake University, who is an environmental attorney, proposed that perhaps the case never would have reached a settlement at all had we not formed, which I thought was encouraging. In September, Terry was invited to speak at the Iowa Environmental Council Conference, and we were able to put up our very first billboard. In response, in collaboration with the Isaac Walton League International, we put our first billboard up in Avoca at the Flying J on the West Nishnabotna. We chose that site because it was deemed a leaking underground storage facility that was deemed safe. And earlier in the spring of 2025, it started leaking again. It was actually found to be leaking from someone that was recreating on the river. That billboard reached at least 125,000 impressions before it was replaced. That same month, we started a partnership with an intern at Red Oak High School, where I work with her and she learns how to do professional skills. So that's been a good relationship. In October, we were able to put up our second billboard in Essex, which is on the East Nishnabotna near Shenandoah, which we mentioned earlier. Both of these billboards were really getting people to think about what we do to the landscape has a direct reflection with what comes out of their tap water and what they're drinking. We had a fundraiser later in October with a guest speaker, John Norris, and a musical guest, Matt Cox, who is a Southwest Iowa native who actually wrote a song called the Nishnabotna long before we found him. I would say the winter of 2025 and early 26 was a winter of invitations. We were invited to speak at the Nature Summit. We were invited by Cass Health in Atlantic because we were seen as a stakeholder. They were holding the Cancer in Iowa 99 Counties tour, and you may know that Cass County is #1 in cancer in Iowa, and they felt it important that we were having a seat at the table as a discussion of what to do about cancer as it relates to water quality. We sat on a panel at the Fields to Faucets, which is on the West Nish in Oakland, Iowa. We launched our monthly newsletter in January. And because of the national coverage that we've received through our billboard campaign, a seasoned watershed improvement group from Michigan called the Plaster Creek Stewards reached out to us and offered their mentorship and support in our efforts, which has been really encouraging. We were also asked to join a partnership with the Iowa Alliance for Responsible Agriculture, which is a nonprofit that's been around Iowa for a long time. They are standing up for a moratorium on CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, until there are less than 100 impaired waterways in Iowa. Currently, there are 750 impaired waterways in Iowa. Although we got an answer to the question about the new co-op spill in July, it was really not satisfactory. We spent the winter in discussions as a board, and we made a bold decision to file a lawsuit against New Co-op, which Jim will talk about here in a minute. We are also celebrating this spring with 2 anniversaries. Nishnabotna Water Defenders is 1, but for the past 50 years, Denise and Larry have dedicated their lives, their work, and raising their family to bettering the planet, caring for the soil, protecting clean water, and striving to leave the world a better place for generations that follow. We are so privileged. We are so privileged to have them on our board. That cake is in celebration of them, and it's been in my trunk for 2 weeks. So I hope you like it. So how do you measure success? The questions keep coming, and we are always looking for answers. Some are easier to find than others. As our first year comes to a close, there's another question. Do you measure it by our increased membership? More talk about water quality locally, regionally, and nationally? The incredible uptick in nitrate watch participation from 2025 to 2024 to, 24 to 25? Just so you know, it's been a 270% increase from nitrate watch participation from 2024 to 2025. And 60.6% of that has been Iowans. Could it be our media exposure? I think that could be. Could it be our developing partnerships? Could it be that we are now having a seat at the table on some solution-based actions in statewide organizations that are including Southwest Iowa and the Nishnabotna Water Defenders, where we can combine our resources and our efforts? We We've made wonderful relationships with groups and individuals who've been at this for decades. We are literally standing on the shoulders of people that have been at this for a very long time. For those that speak for the water and advocate for change. One of them we'll hear from later, Liz. The tide is turning and water quality is getting tremendous attention, and it will take all of us. I think one more measure of success could be recognition. And we do have one more piece that I have been keeping a secret for so long, even from the man, my sweetheart, that I live with. And I want to tell you that we are receiving an award.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we are on April 25th, the Save Our Streams Volunteer Award. I'm going to just read you an excerpt from this. Recognize individual groups or organizations judged to have done outstanding work demonstrating the principles of environmental education and citizen activism for clean water during the past year. The Nishnabotna Water Defenders are a Southwest Iowa citizen and advocacy group that formed in response to the March 2024 fertilizer spill that killed roughly 800,000 fish in the East Nishnabotna River, following the release of approximately 1,500 tons of nitrogen fertilizer into the river. Local residents organized to advocate for stronger protections for their water and their communities. Since forming, the Defenders have focused on water quality monitoring, public education, and environmental accountability. Volunteers have been trained to test nitrate levels in surface water, private wells, and tap water in partnership with the Isaac Walton League of America. The group also organizes community cleanups, holds public meetings, and conducts outreach efforts to raise awareness about water quality issues in the region. The Nishnabotna Water Defenders continues to advocate for stronger groundwater and surface water protections while engaging local residents in monitoring and protecting their waterways. They also host community events and publish a monthly newsletter to keep citizens informed and involved. The Nishnabotna Water Defenders exemplify the principles of citizen engagement, environmental education, and community-based water monitoring that Save Our Streams program was designed to encourage. So you should know that if you have a secret to keep, I am a vault. You can tell me. It is my great pleasure to introduce now Vicki Nordskog, our treasurer. Vicki is retired from the financial services industry, where she was a strategic program manager for Wall Street investment firms like Wells Fargo Bank. She's a native of Cass County, Iowa, and upon her return to Atlantic after 43 years away, she was greatly distressed by the changes in the Iowa landscape, its waterways, and the high incidence of cancer. She has a passion for conservation and wildlife habitat and believes that Iowa's children need to be able to experience the meandering streams and clean water that she played in as a child. Welcome our wonderful Vicki.
All right, so I'm going to just briefly go over our finances and then where we're heading into the coming year. So we actually have had quite a bit of success over the course of this last year in comparison to other organizations that I've been involved with. And so we actually have raised, the next slide will show how much we've raised, but anyway, so right now we have over $2,700 in the bank, so we're pretty proud of that, with only one outstanding accounts payable, so we've got $8,000 in the bank currently. What we've received in contributions from individuals, just straight contributions, is $10,622. We received almost $2,000 worth of in-kind donations for our fundraiser that we had last fall. And in addition to that, we've received another $1,342 in revenue. So our total revenue and support for this past year was close to $14,000, which we think was pretty astounding considering it was our very first year in existence. This coming year, or the kind of expenses that we incurred last year, we spent $266 on educational programs, over $4,000 in outreach and advocacy. Included in that, for example, would be billboards, management general expenses, $800. We kept that to $800, and we hope to continue to keep our management expenses low. And then fundraising and donor relations, $766. So we're pretty proud of our financials heretofore. So let me, at this point, talk to you a little bit about where we're going. I'm not sharing our budget slide with you, but I do want to say that we do hope to be able to do more billboards, and they're $1,000 a crack. We would like to do more extensive fundraising, and there's obviously expenses associated with doing fundraising. And as everyone knows, we're in the middle of, or just starting, litigation, and litigation is not inexpensive. And we know this litigation could go on for quite a long time, so we have to be prepared for that. We're going to have expert witness expenses. There will be out-of-pocket expenses that our lawyers will be incurring that we will need to assist them with until we have a settlement. So, and hopefully if the settlement goes our way, then most of those expenses will be reimbursed. But until then, and we actually been recently talking to some individuals who put a lawsuit out there almost 6-7 years ago, and they're still in the throes of that lawsuit. Even though they've won on multiple occasions, that appeals process just keeps coming back and getting them time and time again. And what makes it even worse is that it's a quarry situation, and the individuals that are doing all of the pollution are continuing to do that while the litigation continues. Did you have a question?
I did. I wondered how long does that billboard last for $1,000? Is there a time period?
So
take it down or what?
it varies.
Oh.
So the one billboard was a month, and then it had to come down again because someone else wanted to use it.
Okay.
Other billboards, if no one signs up for the space, the sign stays there as long as the billboard's available.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Yes, that one's been up for.
Our N6 billboard is still there.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah, so we do have one billboard
Yes.
that's still there. So, which has been wonderful. Not the one by the Flying J, but the other one has been there since we put it up. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to share with you. And so this is the start of our new year. In the past, our membership has been volunteer, or just, you come if you're interested, and you get on our list, but we really feel like we're at the point where we need to actually charge for membership. So we have a $25 fee, so you'll see brochures on the table, there's a QR code out front, whatever you want to do. If you want to become a member, it's a $25 fee, and obviously we're accepting donations, so for any of our other ongoing expenses. So we really appreciate any help you can give us as we continue to grow our efforts and our notoriety, if you will. So with that, any other questions?
What kind of cost are you looking at potentially for litigation?
Right now, I'm budgeting for about 30 grand.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions? Yes.
If we get grants, will that help cover any of the litigation, or can that be used for that?
We're going to pursue grants, but there are very few grants that cover litigation costs. So we'll hunt, and hopefully we'll find some, but yeah, they're few and far between. Any other questions? Okay, so let me introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Kevin Eicher. He is a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He's the newest member of our board. He's a retired truck driver He's deeply committed to permaculture and regenerative agriculture. And his desire is to leave these hills and water in better shape for his grandchildren, and he's willing to stand up and work for it. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. It means a lot when you throw an event and people actually show up, but it also kind of shows the depth and the need for what it is that we're doing. My name is Kevin Eicher, and I am the newest board member. And they had 6 board members, but then they needed someone as a tiebreaker. So I'm not sure how to feel about that. So if I ever actually do my job, I'm gonna make half the board upset with me. But I do wanna say they are an amazing board, and I think we have exactly the people in place that we need to do what needs to be done. So I'm honored to be here as a board member. I wanna tell a little bit about my story now. About 2 years ago, my grandson and I were standing on the bank of the East Nishnabotna River, down by Riverton, Iowa, and we were hunting for a place to fish this summer. All we could see up and down the river was dead fish. So it was at least a week before I found out what happened. And my question at that time was, how did this happen? How did we get here? So then, in July of last year, the state handed down their slap on the wrist to the company who basically allowed this to happen. They didn't even ask them to clean up what they'd done or do anything different necessarily on their operations to make sure it doesn't happen again. So at that point, I had to ask myself, what can I do about this? And that's when I started looking around, and I got connected with the Nishnabotna Water Defenders, and became a member, and then they asked me to come and join the board. So here I am. I've kind of volunteered, I guess, to be their fundraiser coordinator, so everybody stay tuned. But I want to talk just a minute about some of the initiatives that we have going on at the Nishnabotna Water Defenders right now. So nitrate watch participation, that's huge. That's a big part of what we do. It's how we find out a lot of times what's going on in our waterways. And so we're asking our members, we're asking everyone to commit to testing the water somewhere in the watershed, preferably on the river, preferably at the same place each time, and then recording those results on a website. All of that is available on our website, our home website. So that's, I guess we kind of envision an army of citizen scientists, citizen watchdogs out there keeping track. And I honestly believe that when you look at history, it's groups like this are the only reason anything ever gets done on a long-term basis. Water testing equipment. I want to ask one of our board members here, Jody or Terry, to explain about the water testing equipment.
Oh, sure. This is an initiative where we are hoping to provide water testing equipment, more of like the testing equipment that Samantha was using before, more sophisticated chemistry equipment, to the conservationists in our watershed, which contains 10 counties. Our watershed is very big, and they don't have the the funding, I guess. Some of their kits are inadequate, and they need some supplemental equipment. And then what we'll do is partner with them for educating the public about water testing, getting people reconnected with the water, having, outreach and sessions like that. And then there'll be some maybe equipment for checkout is also something that we've been talking about. There are programs like this across the state where this is already being done. So there is a precedent, there is a model to have this done. It's something that we were talking about just to continue to promote community science, get people engaged, thinking about the water, what's in the water, things like that. So that's what we're talking about. Yes?
Do you do anything with the schools, the kids' science classes and?
Yeah, great question.
You do?
Not yet, but no, that's definitely been something we've talked about. Yeah,
I think it's so important.
yeah,
I mean, my opinion.
yeah. And Mary Buchanan is here, and we were talking about they're educators, and talking, yeah, they're retired. And we were talking about like when I grew up, it's called outdoor ed, but there is a program in Iowa, and now I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, we connected with them. It's a program where it gets kids out for science education, and the Water Defenders working with them. Yes, Brad, do you know the name of it? School of the Wild. Thanks, Liz.
I know the name of the one I used for 35 years in the It's called the Iowa Environthon. Actually, it's a national one. It's an environthon. If you can get that into your schools, that is a whole curriculum dealing with aquatics, forestry, soil, wildlife. It gets kids hands-on when they get the state doing trying to come up with ideas to solve different scenarios. That is an absolutely A-plus educational program.
Yeah. School of the Wild is the one that we have connected with. So we have had conversations going. One of the things that we have struggled with is just a lack of, we are volunteers doing this. So, we just need more people. We have a lot of great ideas, and a lot of things that we want to do. So it's good. Yeah. Well, we want to involve all the generations. This affects all of us.
And also, I think if you would talk to school boards at their meeting and present it, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Again, we just need more people.
Can I add
Yes,
one thing?
Vicki.
So I'd like to add one thing. So under the nitrate watch participation, and actually this applies to, and we can do broader-based water testing too in these locations. While new co-op was told, don't do this again for 3 years. There's no one monitoring whether they're doing it again. And so what we want to do is be part of the solution and ask that people take on responsibility for testing upstream and downstream of those locations. And so Larry put together a map of the Nishnabotna watershed and where those new co-op locations are. So if people want to take responsibility for providing that upstream and downstream testing, so we can provide that information to Jim so that we can incorporate that into our lawsuit, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions and ideas also. Identifying waterway pollution, I don't know a lot about that either. If you could help me out.
We have information. This is just something we're teaching people how to report spills. Because, again, almost every spill that has been identified has been by not the DNR, not any employee. It's by people that go and look at the river. So this is actually part of the testing thing too. Because if you get out on the river every month and you're doing your committed volunteer water testing, or you're recreating on the river, you just know what to look for, and then you know where to report it to. So we have information all in this back table here, right, the restrooms, for how to report a spill to the DNR and the EPA. So this is our education piece.
I just wanted to add, it's always illegal to dump something in a water body, even though you see drain tile running into these creeks. That is not yet illegal, but we're working on that.
I'm sorry, would a spill include standing manure?
Yes,
Fields?
yes.
Okay.
That's cool.
Anything foamy, stinky, a sheen. Yeah,
So what do you have to do to report? Do you have to document it and take pictures?
I have some sheets back there for you, Mary. Okay.
There's phone numbers to the DNR in the state, and then there's also phone numbers to the EPA, so basically you call.
And there's a form to fill out. And it's on our website.
There's a lot of stuff on our website. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. They didn't know before I came over there with the microphone that I was gonna be asking them these questions. Farmer champions, I like this idea. If a farmer steps up and voluntarily decides that they will test the water as it's running off of their own farm, and then making that information public, we want to award them for that. We want to recognize them. I believe we're working on a way to put some kind of a sign or a plaque or some recognition out in front of their driveway. And I really like that idea. And then I need to change to just
Yep,
push the,
just push enter or return. Yep.
yeah, perfect.
Yep, okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm learning a lot, folks. So, working our way around the watershed, promoting more hands-on activity, park cleanups, floats, fishing, speaking engagements. So, all of that is very, very important. It's a very big part of what it is we want to do and who it is that we want to be. And as you've already heard several times already, all of that requires help. Volunteer. If you have any skill whatsoever that you think might be helpful, I know right now, we were talking about this just the other night. We need a volunteer coordinator. We need somebody to help us corral all this information and all this help, point it in the specific direction we want to go. And so any way at all, if you know someone or if you have skills that you would like to help with, that would be very much appreciated. And then I told my story about how I found out about the spill. We've had mentions already about how the other stories about how they interacted with the Nishnabotna as a kid, and we want to hear your stories. My story is actually posted on our YouTube channel. However it is that you want to tell your story, we want to hear it. And we want other people to hear it also, because that kind of makes it real for everyone. More billboards. We've talked about that, spreading our message. When it comes to more billboards, those cost money. We've already talked about that, but I want to hit on it again. It's all of this costs money, and yet, being a nonprofit organization, we're squeezing those dollars like you can't imagine. We're really good at doing all that. And then Nitrate Pollution Awareness Week is July 26th through August 1st of 2026. And we are, we're partnering with several other larger organizations that are doing the same work that we're doing, heading in the same direction. So we have a lot going on in this area, and I do have one more announcement that I want to make, and it's a big one. So if you would, I'm asking a lot here, I know. I need a drum roll. Awesome, you're doing great. We're launching what we're calling Refish the niche. Maybe you saw a shirt here. We want to make our river safe for fish again, is basically what we want to do. And when I look back and I see what it is that happened, how did we get here? I keep coming back to, time and time again, as a culture, we have lost touch with the natural world. Specifically, we're talking about the rivers and the lakes, the Nishnabotna River. Many of us cross that river every single day and don't even think about it. Don't even look at it anymore because it doesn't really play a part in our lives anymore. So Refish the Nish is all about bringing you and everyone back into contact with our river. And the way we're doing that, I want each of you to sponsor to adopt a mile of the river. So you are the adoptive parent of that river. As the adoptee or the adopter, you'll want to stay up on news about our river and our watershed. You can do that by reading our monthly newsletter. We want you to protect our river by going out and testing the water on a monthly basis and posting it on the website. We want you to be active in participate in all of the activities that we have planned for this summer, and bring someone along. We really need, bring those families along, bring those kids along. Yes, I would love to get schools involved with our activities and all of that stuff, all under the umbrella of Refish the Nish and getting people back in touch with our river. So for $25, you can sponsor a mile of the river, and I hope I can give you a certificate, printed up, personalized for you. And it's all tax deductible. If $25 isn't enough of a tax deduction, you can sponsor as many miles as you want to. Okay? So I'm trying to be helpful. My goal is my intention to sponsor all 50 miles that were killed 2 years ago tonight, if we can. So I'm gonna need your help and your participation. And I appreciate your time. And now I'm gonna hand this back over to Terry. We can get on to the main reason we're here, I think.
Yeah, sponsoring the river, that was Kevin's idea. You can look at a GPS of the river and he can explain it to you how, and I think we can overlap too, you know, if we end up with more people.
That's another thing. Actually, I want you to go out and find your own spot on the river. Find your favorite spot. Find the place where you used to go fishing or swimming. Adopt that. You can, any place on the river is fine with me. Take a picture of it. I just found a picture of my favorite spot on Google Maps, and posted it as wallpaper on my phone. So just go find your own spot and have fun.
But we'd like to bring Jim LaRue up. Jim is one of our attorneys that's helping us along doing this lawsuit and has helped guide us along this way. Jim is an honors graduate of both Harvard University and University of Iowa College of Law. Jim LaRue has been providing legal services to Iowans for more than 30 years over a broad range of civil and criminal matters, including employment, civil rights, family law, and property law. He has tried many cases in state and federal courthouses in Iowa and Illinois and has argued appeals before the Iowa Supreme Court and the Federal Court of Appeals for the 7th and 8th Circuits. 2007 through 2011, Jim served as general counsel to Iowa Governor Chet Culver. Also served as policy director and chief of staff in the office of the governor. Upon return to his private practice, Jim expanded his general law practice and broadened its focus to include advocating for the interests of Iowa policy holders against insurance companies who have acted in bad faith, against environmental polluters, and against owners of nursing homes and care facilities who have injured residents through indifference or neglect. So please welcome Jim LeBlanc.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to address you. In my mind's eye, didn't anticipate so many good speakers in front of me, and I feel challenged. But I also am going to slightly reorient my remarks so I don't duplicate the kind sentiments that were expressed by each of you concerning the others. But I do want to start off with a premise. The order of my presentation will be one, to provide, or trying to provide some context from which I am viewing the formation of a group like this. And two, I'm going to briefly outline the lawsuit. There are some strict parameters that we have in Iowa. There's attorneys involved in litigation are strictly limited as to what they can say about that litigation ongoing. I can outline what's in the pleadings, but not much beyond that. I think we should be able to talk in ways that make sense to us, but it will be briefly stated and summarize what the claims are. Then we're going to answer questions that you may have, subject only to the limitations that I just expressed. Then finally, I'd like to have a brief summary, or provide you a brief summary of where I think where these are. Here's something that happened even within a few days that I'm going to spend a little time with, because it helps to explain a theme that is at least important to me. How is it that a group like this that didn't even exist a year ago now fills a hall? I think if 2 weeks ago the snowstorm hadn't been here, you would have had the same or a larger group, which means that this is a priority in your lives. 10 years ago, I started work in litigation down in the state of Alabama to defend a gentleman who was on death row. It's something that I felt compelled to do as a part of my career. Without getting into details, I went down there being compelled when I was a young person, when I first discovered there was a world outside of my own family's stable home, I'm grateful to say. It's when they started shipping up reels of black and white footage to put on national news. You had 3 choices of 3 networks. And there I saw children of my own age being hosed down with fire hoses as they were walking along the streets of Birmingham, and other kinds of footage describing what we later came to be called the Civil Rights Movement. And that was a movement comprised of, 1, we want to desegregate the South, and 2, we want voting rights. Those made a strong impression on me, and I wanted to be a part of the legal proceedings down in that state, a state that has, in my opinion, very difficult laws compared to our own. A very disproportionate number of people who are, including my client, who are subject to that kind of punishment, capital punishment, are black, largely tried by white juries. Even in counties that have large black populations. So I've been doing that now for a decade, and going down there and drawn to that part of history. In Montgomery, Alabama, I never fail, if schedule allows, to spend a few minutes in the back pew of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church where Martin Luther King Jr. First preached, and then it became the organizational base in the basement for the bus boycott that started in December of 1955. And then as I sit in the back pew and I think about what happened in history, to my left, which would be to the east, is the state capitol of the state of Alabama, where the Confederacy was started with the first president of the Confederacy sworn in, and where Martin Luther King gave his address after marching 60 miles from Selma. And then to my right, along Dexter Avenue, with my back to that avenue, is where Rosa Parks got on the Cleveland Avenue bus and refused to move. I go there each year, or each trip, and there are 4 of them a year, and just to think and the thoughts come to me. But the thought of what it must have been like in the 1950s when people, knowing something was horribly wrong, didn't know what to do about it, and they gradually came to a common vocabulary, and then a moment, and there's an alchemy to it. We can't predict. We are humans as a group, hard to predict, and it's always clearer looking backwards than it is forwards. But think of these people, the men coming back from World War II and the Korean War, having been treated in a meritocracy, but then coming back to the Deep South, to the Jim Crow laws, and suddenly being treated in a different way. There's an energy there. Or the women who had gone north to work in the factories, in the industries, being treated equally, going and eating with other people in restaurants, and coming back then to Alabama or Mississippi and being treated again in a segregated way. There was an energy in the basements of the churches and other social halls, people knowing they wanted to make a difference, not sure how it was going to be done. And then a middle-aged lady with dignity, quiet, shy of crowds, decides she's had enough and refuses to move when she's asked to on the bus. And there was a bus boycott. People thought it would last maybe a day. They planned it over the weekend for the first Monday, and not a black soul was on a bus. And then they decided to extend it. And at the close of my talk, then I'm going to give some thoughts about who arose as the leader out of that group unexpectedly. Martin Luther King Jr., who changed the world. Well, I call this moment, in my own mind, I have a word, it's like a fermentation. It's going on, but it's not yet coate. And people are beginning to look at each other differently, maybe strangers to each other, but now bound together by a common mission. I think we're at that moment in Iowa now, and it's a different civil rights movement, that's what it is. And the fundamental right is to have access to clean water.
Amen.
Access to clean water. It's not yet in our Constitution, but it will be. But it will be. And we're not yet organized in the way that we are strong enough to bend back history in a better direction, but we will be. We will be, and this is the start. It was already expressed that it's sometimes small groups that make the difference. I would call them small bands of moral pioneers. And that's what this group is. That's what this group is, and there are others that are coming about and arising in the same way, because they have the same concerns, and they don't want to be blocked by a power group, just as it was the white power group that held the South back for 70 years by discriminating against more than half of its populations in places like Montgomery. So too here. It's a small group of extremely powerful corporations who have designed an agricultural system where everyone loses but them. To be a part of a group like this is not to be anti-farmer. We want farmers to succeed, but we want it to be in a system that does not pollute our air and water to the extent that it does, and we don't want it to be a system that always leaves the farmer short by overproducing only 2 crops almost anymore, beans and corn. We have some work to do on this, and it's an important part that the 96% of us who don't farm but live downstream and who are asked to drink shit water, it's time for this to stop. And we don't have to invent this as though we don't know what we're talking about. We want conditions that we experienced in our own lives. This is what pulls us together. Well, the moment that happened this week that I want to share, and then I'll go right into the lawsuit, because I have this view of this analogy between what was going on in the Deep South in the 1950s and what's happening at this moment. I also view as a heroic figure Rosa Parks. I think most of you know her name, maybe not everyone agrees, that it's the quiet people, the firm people, the brave people who changed the world. I felt her out as a hero for a long time, and one of my favorite books, of my many, many books, my wife would say too many books, is a book written 25 years ago by the historian Douglas Brinkley. And you may be aware of him. He's a presidential historian. He appears oftentimes on CBS and CNN as their extra commentator. And 2 areas of focus in his life, he's written, I think, 26 books, civil rights and the environment. That analogy, he's a professor of history, distinguished professor at Rice University. He was the guest speaker at the Culver Institute at Simpson College on Thursday. And I went there to listen and met with him afterwards and had a bushel full of books that he'd written that I wanted him to sign. But I told him, my favorite book of yours, sir, is your humblest one. 26 years ago, a thin volume about Rosa Parks. And I'm compelled to the story that she told him because she was still alive, and they spent a lot of time together telling her life. There have been other biographies written about her since, longer, more thorough, but none that are better. And what he recognized in her life was just this part. How is it that individual people can make such a difference? I told him what was going on in Iowa. There were a line of people behind me. I sort of felt bad, but not really. Because I wanted to tell him there's something going on in Iowa. And he got it immediately. I said, I'm reminded of the Rosa Parks meeting, and we're having that moment in Iowa. He says, Jim, I'm with you. Call me on Sunday. And I called him a couple of hours ago. I was on my way. He says, Jim, where are you going? And I told him about this meeting. And I told him what you're standing up against, this huge fish kill. And this group has come together. And he says, Jim, I'm in with you 100%. So Douglas briefly knows about this meeting. And we're on our way. We're on our way. You are part of a large piece of history. You are at ground zero of what I believe to be an upcoming and forming new civil rights movement. And this has to do with the right to protect citizens' access to clean water. Now, as a part of that, as it was with the analogy of the civil rights movement in the South, every successful social movement, you might say, but particularly that one, that's one we're talking about, a social political movement, involves to some extent litigation. Litigation is a part of that. That's where we go to resolve matters that we cannot otherwise resolve. But it's not the end of it. Courts have no armies. They can articulate principles. And then in a democracy, if we choose to follow the law, that's how we begin to move. So think of it in the Deep South. Some of these cases you'll remember. Brown versus Board of Education. May 17th, 1954 held that separate was not equal. It was inherently unequal when it came to educating our children. That overturned a half a century of precedent when that Supreme Court in the late 19th century it said separate is equal if certain accommodations are made. The Supreme Court said no, separate is inherently unequal when it comes to that. Bowder versus Gale, that was in the 2 years later. Desegregated, that came out of Alabama too, and a parallel case to Rosa Parks' refusal to sit on to be moved on the school bus or on the city bus. And the Supreme Court said there, no, when it comes to transportation, all facilities must be equal. And then the heart of Atlanta, Motel versus the United States, another U.S. Supreme Court case that said public accommodations must be offered to the public regardless of race. How long had those precepts held us back and made us less of a nation than otherwise we should have been? Well, why do I say that? Because the whole nation didn't change with those Supreme Court cases, but it was an important part of how we became a better nation. You're in litigation, and that's why I'm here, to remind you of that fact. Will it end all? No. Will you even win or lose? I cannot predict. But what I will say, that when you've decided to move a step forward and to be part of the case against a grievous attack on your right to have clean water, you will, by filing that lawsuit, have made some difference in what will become the future of this state, because you are at ground zero of this great new movement to protect our natural resources and make them available to us. So what did you do as a group? You came to an attorney. It happened to me, and I was so lucky that you did. It is my privilege to serve. And so that we know the expenses that are there are out-of-pocket expenses that we do to pay other people. Our service here is pro bono. We're not charging for our attorney's fees. If we happen to sue under a lawsuit or a statute where attorney fees are allowed to be paid by a third party, we might ask for your permission, but our time otherwise is given to this group on a pro bono basis. So it is my privilege to serve, but the Nishnabotna Water Defenders are the plaintiff. And as citizens bound, the first challenge will be as to whether you have standing as a group. And individuals here will draw on to say that you have a tangible relationship to this water. Some of them are property interest, as in real property. They're proximate to the water. Others have property interest because they want to be a part with their personal property. They'd like to float on boats and otherwise use the river. And some people have wells and this kind of thing. You have standing as a group to be plaintiffs. New Cooperative is the defendant. And there are three main claims that are being made, and it could expand. We just have filed the suit, we're hardly into it, but they come under what's called the common law. The common law are theories that allow people to achieve justice with others under claims that have been recognized for centuries by our courts, going back even to English common law. One is nuisance, a claim for nuisance. That is to say, the actions of a new cooperative have been such that it makes it impossible to use and enjoy the resource of the river. Your reasonable use and enjoyment has been diminished as a result of not only the initial conduct, but no assurance that what happened to cause the spill to begin with has been repaired in any permanent way. We are saying there is an ongoing nuisance. We also claim that the water is a resource of the state, held in trust by the state for the benefit of the people. In Iowa, the people own the water. It's your resource that's being attacked. Number two, negligence. That is, reasonable standards of care have been breached by the conduct of new cooperative. And as a result of that breach, you have suffered damages along the lines that we have talked about. That's called negligence. Third, trespass. That pollutants emitted from new cooperative have interfered physically, a trespass, onto the rights and the property owned in trust by the state for your benefit, and in some cases, the actual property owned by you. So those are your three claims, and in each instance, we ask for damages. We've asked for a jury trial, and we've just begun this litigation. I am ready to answer questions that you may have, and then I'll have a brief closing statement at the end.
Okay, we have one.
Do we have a second mic?
Yeah, I can walk around with
Okay,
this.
super. And I'll do the phone.
We had one question about what Missouri's response is in particular, because the Nishnabotna flows through the top part of Missouri before it meets the Missouri River.
And I don't have an answer as to what they've done in a regulatory way. I know that they did their own study, and in fact, there was a certain period of time when it was easier to get information about this event from the Missouri DNR than it was from Iowa. So we have this unfortunate, it's a long-standing period of time where DNR has not had the resources that it needs to just do its job, and they have become experts in counting dead fish more so than in preventing the killing of fish. Just my own view.
Just to touch on that, Missouri has a sunshine law that any taxpayer money that's spent in the state is open to public review. So you just fill out an application form on their website, say I'd like to have all of the man hours spent on this and whatever. So Missouri did its own fish kill count down there, as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and their results are forthcoming. They are also seeking I forget what it's called. No, it's an assessment and then a means of restoration. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife out of Iowa and Illinois, because this river crosses state boundaries.
Yes, there are statutes. The lawsuit that we just mentioned is you as a entity exercising the common law, non-statutory law, to seek remedies. There are statutes that can be invoked to protect the public interest in incidents such as like the Federal Clean Water Act and State Clean Water Act, and there may be more to announce at a later time. Yes.
You mentioned standing. Has it been determined if we have standing?
No, it will be challenged. It has not yet been determined. But you can expect that to be the first challenge of any suit like this. And I can't say for certain that'll be a court-made decision when a challenge. Some folks will be asked to issue sworn statements called declarations, in which case we'll prove up and we'll say, here's a representative sample. It's an impressive thing to have over 200 or nearly 200 members, and we won't take every member to do a declaration, but a sampling of them. And well, you can expect that's a part of every one of these environmental lawsuits, is a challenge to standing.
I'm unfamiliar with what New Cooperative does. What is that business to have caused this spill?
Others who use the business could probably do a better job, but here, in essence, it's a group, in the old days, cooperatives, maybe it still is in some way, used to be owned by local people to serve each other with farm chemicals and supplies and that kind of thing. New Cooperative has very aggressively in the last few years bought up lots of local cooperatives and is now a large entity, which presumably does the same thing. So offering fertilizers to farmers at certain times of years, for example, and so they had a huge holding tank, maybe a couple, I think, which held fertilizers, and the faucet was left on, and then no one was there to supervise during the weekend. So by the time they came back, a huge amount of the contaminant had gone into the river. Go ahead.
We're fortunate to have this gentleman who's spent 30 years of his life over there, so he can tell you what the co-op does, or what the co-op is.
Yeah,
Please do that.
I'm Mark McCaffrey. I work for United Farmers Cooperative. It's got bought out by New Co-op. I worked there 41 years. Retired. And I managed the lumber yard. I was department level management with the co-op, and it is a co-op, and it's owned by member farmers, and it is an ag business. So it is an outlet for local farmers to buy their fertilizers, their seeds, their inputs. They also market the grains, the corn and the beans. So it is an integral part. You know, co-ops go into the Iowa. You know, that's part of Iowa, the co-ops. So that's basically what they do. Now I know that it just seems to me, you know, being part of it, as I sat in some of the meetings, there is a sense there was some arrogance a little bit. It felt how they, you know, they felt that they, you know, this is what ag is in Iowa, and this is what they do. And sometimes you just kind of felt that some of the results, because they had some other issues in the past, some other spill. I remember one time a tanker of fertilizer leaked in Villisca. So I'm sure if you go back, and I'm sure other co-ops have the same issues. You know, they're dealing with highly volatile products and dangerous stuff, chemicals. So they are at task to make it safe for our communities. So that's about it. So I'm glad to hear that there's a group taken to you know, make them responsible for what they have done.
You know, go ahead, please. I have one response here. Nothing that we are doing in this lawsuit on our own as lawyers or on behalf of our clients has been or ever will be to demonize people in this industry. But the whole purpose of law, particularly laws involving tort and everything, is to ensure that each of us acting in our own ways are doing so in a way that makes it safe to live for others. That's why we don't allow trucks to go 100 miles an hour down the interstate, although they could probably like to if they could get there sooner, all the rest, because we know it's unsafe to the rest of us, let alone to the drivers of the vehicles. Here, we are arguing that there are certain standards of conduct that can or should be imposed on any entity like New Cooperative, and for whatever reason wasn't. How could you explain what happened if it were being operated in a way that was sufficient? And then if an accident happens, and they do happen, how can you have a spill like this killing 800,000 fish and all basically living entities in that with a market value that far exceeded what they were fined? How does that work? How does that work? How is the public interest served by that? But that's far short of demonizing anyone, which we will not do.
And just one.
Kind of follow up maybe with a question. Is New Co-op, is it owned by local farmers? I'd like to know where their headquarters are. Is it in the state of Iowa?
Fort Dodge.
Fort Dodge.
Fort Dodge. It started there and then it's just been buying up more and more.
They have over 80 locations in Iowa and Missouri, 11th largest ag producer in the country. And just one final thing, we just have time basically. What are we asking for?
Well, it's, when you start out a lawsuit, you lay out all the possible avenues of relief. What I would like to think, I think what the membership would like is when all is said and done, that the entity here in Red Oak is safe, that there's almost no likelihood of it ever happening again, and the people would feel safe by using for fishing or for boating, that they don't have to worry what's gonna come into the river from it. But also see if we could encourage the company to improve all of its multiple locations, so that similarly, every one of those places, if there's a spill, it's gonna end up in a body of water somewhere. And what can we do to improve that? And if we don't have regulatory agencies, and the state of Iowa, we don't, that are sufficiently concerned about the quality of water, let alone the public health to do this, then the mechanism of private lawsuits is what we have. And so we want to create an environment where they're thinking very carefully about this kind of situation. We know they deal with harmful chemicals, all the more reason to protect the public.
So basically, the conditions have not changed. Everything that led to this event is ongoing, and not just the Red Oak location, all of their locations, so, and that's not acceptable. They can simply do better, be a better neighbor, put in berms, put in valves, I mean, industry standard stuff that, you know.
So I'd like to close with just a thought. I've taken more of your time than I deserve, but I wanted to share a thought. It goes along with the corollary, and it's tied to Nora Parks, but also to another figure who extremely motivating to me, Martin Luther King Jr. This is where their lives intersected. Martin Luther King Jr. was at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church that I described when Rosa Parks had decided not to move. And there were 5 major preachers in Montgomery, black preachers, but they were competitive with each other. And they couldn't decide who. In those days, of course, this might remind you something, the women did all the work and the men had all the linemen. I know that wouldn't happen in Cass County. But this is what was going on in Montgomery. 60% black to 40% a white population. And the ministers got together and they met and they created a new organization. What are we going to call it? Montgomery Improvement Association. Who's going to be president? Well, because the 5 couldn't get along, they appointed a new kid on the block, Martin Luther King Jr., 26 years old, who had just come down from Boston University where he was finishing up his PhD. He became the leader, and they thought this would be a one-day event. She was arrested on the first day of December, a Thursday. On Friday, they had this meeting at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and they said, well, let's see what happens on Monday. They weren't sure a boycott would work. But there you have on Monday, not a black soul was on any of these buses. They knew they had some. Then they go, what do we do? What do we do? So on the 5th, Martin Luther King, now appointed president, is driven over to the Holt Street Baptist Church, which has been there. I've been in there. I've been moved. I stood at the podium where he was. It's not oftentimes visited, but to me it was a moving experience. And he wrote his sermon or his talk on the back of an envelope, and there were 7,000 people there to hear him speak. There was a national press, and when he spoke, he quoted, of course this was coming from his soul. He didn't have time to prepare. And he quoted from the Old Testament, Amos, chapter 5, verse 24. And he said, let justice roll down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. That had to be in his soul, because if you listen to his speeches, and the favorite ones were other lines are the ones that are quoted, whether in Iowa City, Iowa on November 11, 1959, or at the feet of Abraham Lincoln on August 28, 1963, or when he finished the march from Selma to Montgomery and stood at the base of the Capitol 104 years after the presidency had been taken in that building, or on the night before he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, April 3, 1968, where we remember the line about, I've seen the mountaintop, but I won't be there with you. In all of those instances, he quoted the same chapter, or the same verse, let justice roll down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Can we take a cue? We're talking about water here. And as we work together in Iowa to achieve environmental justice, let us also work to assure that when the waters and the mighty streams roll down, they are clean.
I'd like to introduce Liz Garst. Liz manages a farm near Coon Rapids, Iowa, and oversees 2 family-owned community banks. She served in the Peace Corps and worked for the World Bank, her family's seed company, and as bank president. Liz has a BA from Stanford, an MS in agricultural economics from Michigan State, and an MBA from Harvard. She was a founder of White Rock Conservancy and has a long career in civic engagement on behalf of agriculture, the environment, rural development, and civil liberties. And a heck of a sense of humor. In 2023, she was inducted into the Iowa Business Hall of Fame. Her current passion is soil health. Please welcome Liz.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a brand new title that I'll brag about. I've just been named a senior fellow at the Harkin Institute. 1 year to work on some of the issues we're going to be talking about today. A year ago at your annual meeting, you had John Norris here who presented this report, which is called the CISWR Water Report. When John Norris was the Polk County Administrator, he got the supervisors of Polk County to chip in a lot of money to assess the water coming into Polk County. And they concluded that agriculture, they assembled a bunch of scientists, and this report was issued a bit more than a year ago now, concluding that about 80% of the pollution in the rivers coming into Polk County the pollution's coming from agriculture. Since that report was issued, there have been a lot of developments in Iowa. In some ways you could say it's getting so bad it's good. We had rationing of the Des Moines Water Works last year because of nitrate pollution. We've had another spate of really bad cancer statistics in Iowa, and the new bad statistic is it's really hitting young people in Iowa. Iowa has had a tremendous amount of really bad press in national publications. Sort of what people know about Iowa now are Caitlin and bad water. That's what people know about Iowa. Most recently, the legislature not most recently, but the legislature has defunded the Water Quality Monitoring Network of Iowa. And this is a really good time to call your state and Senate legislators on you want water quality monitoring. I have a few caveats. Agricultural pollution is not the only source of pollution. Agricultural pollution is not the only source of cancer. And cancer is really complicated. My favorite recent fact about this is Iowa farmers actually have lower than average death rates. And although they're subjected to a lot of pollutants, they also exercise more than most of us, so they live longer. That is to say, cancer is really complicated. I want to just give you right up front, farmers are neither evil or stupid. I am a farmer, so naturally I do not think I'm evil or stupid, and neither do I think other farmers are. We are responding to a set of economic incentives, and we live in a system that is causing these problems. My bottom line is other polluters are regulated. Farmers are the ones that are not regulated. And I wish they were. It would give me a more level playing field as a farmer. And I would point out that the biggest victims of agricultural pollution are farmers and rural people. It's not like this is a city thing happening to farmers. This is our problem. We're in the worst county in the state. This is a rural county. It is really getting bad. This is the most recent cancer statistics for Iowa. You can see that nationally cancer rates are going down, and since about 20, Iowa cancer rates are going up. cancer experts say that really what we're seeing here is what happened to us environmentally starting about 20 years ago. So these trends are going to keep happening, I'm afraid. We're seeing a lot of pictures like this right now in the press relating cancer to various chemicals, relating cancer to nitrate, to atrazine, to glyphosate. A lot of these studies are just correlation, not causal. In other words, we can't say for sure that atrazine causes this problem, but we can sure say it's correlated. And although the correlation's not as good as hard, tight science, there is some hard, tight science, notably with nitrates. Nitrates are correlated, not causally to, for example, colorectal cancers. This is a map of colorectal cancers in Iowa. Looks to me like it might have something to do with that areas. But my main topic today is a year ago when the report was issued about agriculture as polluting water, a group of people came together to discuss, well, okay, what are we going to do about it? How can we solve this problem? And of course, there's a million reasons we can't. This is terrible. There's a million reasons. Maybe it'll last. This is not a study of what's politically feasible. What's politically feasible in Iowa right now is not very much, frankly. But a group came together to discuss, actually, if we wanted to solve the problem, to clean up the agricultural pollutants in our water, what could we do about it? So a discussion group came together, and the report was sort of, the whole project was headed by John Norris again, who's the lead author on this, but really about 20 people worked on this report, and that's my main focus of today. It came up with some basic conclusions about what it would take to clean up our water. It would be as an approach that treats clean water as a public health necessity, which we don't now, manages water at the watershed level, not the county level, addresses pollution at the source. I'll tell you more about that. Enforces accountability and aligns funding with these priorities. That's sort of the basic trick. And another kind of conclusion of this report was we have had efforts, notably the nutrient reduction strategy, and those efforts are simply not working, as evidenced by the fact that fertilizer and chemical use has not declined, manure from CAFOs is even still increasing, and extensive and increasing tile drainage, which causes pollution, is also increasing. So overall, we're not making much progress. We came up with 8 kind of basic categories of what it would take to make progress, and the first is to have monitoring, which the legislature is defunding right now. We think that not only do we need to restore the monitors that are there now, but the monitoring system needs to be better than it is now if we're going to tackle this cancer problem. Every watershed should have monitoring. And especially above cities, there should be real-time monitoring, not only of the nitrates, but also of chemical pollution. We have very little real-time monitoring of chemicals in our rivers in Iowa. 1 jug of atrazine above Cedar Rapids or Des Moines in the river could do a lot of damage, and we don't know anything about that right now. The second kind of basic bullet of what it would take to clean up water in Iowa is to address the pollution at its source. We need to somehow get a grip on how much nutrients are being put on our crop ground. Overall, they are excessive. We need to come up with some ways to limit nutrient application. We probably want to fool around with our tax code a bit and make nitrogen more expensive. First, to fund efforts, but also to promote less use. Notably, we've come up with a proposal that we put, at least for now, a sales tax on fall applied nitrogen, which is really a polluting practice. We need to strengthen manure management requirements. We need to establish buffers along streams. Buffers along streams don't do much for nitrate pollution, but they keep spray booms out of the river. We need to establish buffers along waterways, restrict CAFO expansion. We already have so many nutrients from CAFOs in the state, we're not able to absorb the nutrients we have. We have to get a grip on how much we can put on our land. We need to modernize the master matrix. So that was just a real long list of stop pollution by stop polluting, as opposed to cleaning it up after you do it.
Yep.
Kind of a basic concept. No. We need to reform tile drainage. I'm going to just drop back a little bit and talk about the Des Moines Water Works lawsuit, which I think is very instructive. It was a lawsuit under the Clean Water Act, which addresses point pollution as opposed to non-point pollution. And the litigation question was, is a tile drain pipe a point source pollution? We never got to the merits of that question. And the good lawyers disagree on what the outcome might be. Because in the Des Moines Water Works lawsuit, before we got there, the federal court asked the state Supreme Court to opine whether tile drainage districts in Iowa can be sued. And the answer of the state Supreme Court was no. Tile drainage districts cannot be sued. By definition, in the preamble of the tile drainage law, it says that tile drainage districts, by definition, are good, period. If the state legislature made tile drainage districts responsible for the pollution they caused, they have the power of eminent domain to put in those constructed wetlands, and they also have the power of taxation. So they could address the harms they do cause by speeding up water and delivering nitrates more quickly to the rivers. Tile drainage is a big subject in Iowa. Nobody has a clue where it is, how much of it there is. But the basic idea of our study group, well, let's start getting a grip now. In order to put in more tile drainage, let's understand what's going on at the very least. And then to look at as new tile drainage address the harms it causes. Another point, another general area is we need to invest a lot more in research education and transition to change to a new system. Public universities must refocus on regenerative systems and more diversity in our landscape. More diversity in our landscape. Farmers have a real problem in Iowa. Outside of being accused of pollution, we have the most brittle system. We grow corn and beans, that's it. And if anything goes wrong, like a little trade war or a little COVID or a little derecho, we're just ruined. We need more diversity for environmental reasons, but also economic ones. We need to build agency capacity. Our Department of Natural Resources is desperately underfunded. Our natural resource offices have very terrible technology compared to what's available these days, etc. We need to enforce accountability. I'm not keeping up here. We must have penalties that are meaningful. This is a good spot to mention that idea. We need to increase enforcement capacity. We need to honor the Iowa Water, Land, and Legacy Trust. That is to get a source of funding, but only if it's as originally formulated, and we need to align funding with responsibility. There's a whole lot more detail in all these proposals in our proposal. We address federal policy in our policy. Actually, federal policy has a whole lot more to do with our environmental problems, or could do a lot more to solve our environmental problems than the state of Iowa. The feds spend about $4 billion a year on conservation programs in Iowa. And in Iowa, we're spending 20, 30, 40 million a year on conservation programs. 20 million versus 4 billion. The power is with the feds. The United States has a very lucky problem, and that is farmers produce more than we need. And that has been true for decades and decades and decades in this country. In the old days, the way we solved our oversupply problem in the United States was we controlled supply with set-aside programs, or for people who were even a little older, the land bank program. But in the 80s, we started changing our USDA farm policies and changed them to all-out production, fence row to fence row. We stopped trying to control supply altogether, and now we're trying to solve our problems by coming up with new demand for our crops, notably ethanol. And that system is creating more and more and more acres of corn and beans because of the biodiesel. So that demand boosting system we've got has decreased diversity in our ag economy, pushing us more and more to corn and beans, and also up and up those hills. And we now have several 100,000 acres of row crop in the floodplain, growing for ethanol. The weight of ethanol is about equal to the weight of the soil we use to produce it. So we really are not going to have a great environment, good water quality, till we have fewer row crop acres and more diversity in our landscape. I'm going to switch a little bit and talk a little about my favorite subject, which is soil. Soil is our water filter, and we have lost half of our soil since we started farming. We've lost half the organic matter in the soil that's left. So we're really down to about the quarter of the filter we started with. And soil loss is increasing, not decreasing right now, which is a shocking fact. Our soil loss over decades has changed. We were terrible heading into the Dust Bowl. We got it sort of fixed. We became terrible again as the government was pushing us fence row to fence row. And then we got a good farm bill in '85, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But first, I want to explain why it's getting worse. It's getting worse because we're up the hills and in the floodplain. It's getting worse because of climate change. The main incidence of climate change in Iowa is intensity of rainfall. And the intensity of rainfall is increasing. If you look at 5-inch, 7-inch, 10-inch rains in an hour or 24 hours, any index of intensity is skyrocketing. And that is causing the proverbial farmer gully washers. That's the second reason that soil loss is getting worse. The third reason soil loss is getting worse is because in conventional farming, we're really losing soil quality. Good soil quality is knit together with the exudate, meaning the piss and shit, of bugs in the ground. And we're killing the bugs, so our soil is becoming less aggregated, which is increasing erosion problems. yes?
Are you gonna talk about the loss of trees and how that affects the soil and erosion and pollution, etc.? I haven't heard that mentioned at all today.
No, I'm not, because I think herbaceous layer is what really holds soil better than trees. Oh, by the way, this is a picture of soil, conventionally farmed soil. This picture is what most of Iowa's row crop soil looks like now. This is the same kind of soil, marshal, windblown, glacial till soil. And this is farmed with, when this picture was taken at White Rock, it had been no-tilled since 1982 and covered crop for about 10 years when this picture was taken. This soil used to look like the prior picture. This is called, this soil, it's blocky. The white in it is air or water. It's the sand, silt, and clay glued together into open chambers you're seeing in this picture. 40% porosity. The previous picture, maybe someone could help me go backwards, just so you can compare and contrast. By the way, these pictures were taken by getting a block of dirt, carefully digging it out of the ground. I helped get this sample of this picture. It was shipped to a lab, dried, infused with a clear poly, then thin sliced. So you're seeing about 5/8 inch across the picture, couple inches under the ground. And again, to the next one. Okay, so you're looking at a picture of a soil metric called soil bulk density. Now I'm going to show you the same soil issue a different way. One of these is good soil, meaning from our farm, no-tilled and cover cropped, and the other is from a conventionally farmed, heavily tilled, heavily chemical field. Soil bulk density and soil aggregate stability in water. That's the other, this is called the slake test. It's a demonstration. But if you were to do a soil test, this would be measuring soil aggregate stability. You can see that conventionally farmed field soil here is just disintegrating in the face of water. It's like a pile of dust on your porch. If you pour a pile of dust on your porch, the water will create gullies in the dust, but it won't go into the ground. And that's what's going on with Iowa soils right now. So bad soil health is causing soil erosion, and soil erosion causes big-time water problems. We're back to water quality. Soil erosion is carrying the phosphorus above all else. That is causing the toxic blooms in our water. Phosphorus is causing the water to be dark, which is causing a lot of the animals in the water that could help clean it up to die. Okay? We'll keep watching this till the end of the day. When we're done, this will be completely gone. And this will still be sitting here at the top of the water. The effects of all this. This is a picture I took. In the foreground is my neighbor. It was a seed demonstration site. It was disced every fall. It had strips of different kinds of hybrids and a tent in August and some coffee. And our field in the background, no-tilled since we bought it in the mid-'80s. When this picture was taken, cover crops for 7 years. Same soils. Planted corn on about the same day. 7 inches in 4 hours. We did not lose a single plant. They lost a third of their plants. They lost, I don't know, 13,000 years of topsoil in one 4-hour event. They lost their seed demonstration site contract. And they've lost yield forever in this field. So, Jerry Hatfield says we'll have no soil in the Les Hills in 30 years. Jerry Hatfield, who's the chief USDA soil scientist of Iowa, says we'll have no topsoil in north central Iowa in 100 years. Without soil, we're really going to have water problems. I'm a big fan of the 85 Farm Bill. Back to the federal policy is really the most important thing happening here. In the 85 Farm Bill, taxpayers said to farmers, we'll continue our subsidies for you, but you gotta stop losing so much soil. And they came up with a plan. You don't get federal subsidies unless you lose less than 5 tons an acre a year, which was then defined as little circles on my ground. It wasn't thought we were eroding 5 tons an acre. Well, now the entire state of Iowa is eroding at more than 5 tons an acre a year. In fact, there's new long-term research we're eroding at about 10 tons an acre a year. So this is not a pretty situation. The Farm Bill said we don't want to give you subsidies unless you clean up your act. We should say that now. Hello? We should say stop eroding, stop polluting, or we don't want to give you federal taxpayer subsidies. Right. Taxpayers should be getting annoyed about what's going on. We can make it better. We could use the new technology we have that will reveal, in fact, how bad this erosion is all over Iowa, this 5 tons plus an acre. We need a much more competent staff with new technology than we have in our NRCS offices. But man, those feds have a lot of money to fix this problem if only we, the taxpayer, would ask them to apply it. So I have a few copies of this report here, not for everybody, but anybody dying to read more, especially if you're willing to talk about it, speak about it in your coffee shop. I've got a few copies here. And if you want to see the whole report online, you can go to Google Hargan Institute Water Quality Resources and you can get to this report. I do have a few other things I think that the feds should be doing that are not part of this report, Hargan Institute report. These are my opinions. We do need to phase out ethanol, but only as we decrease corn acres. We can't just say ethanol is no good. We don't want to bankrupt farmers, our economy. We're going to have to do this gradually. We need to update our drinking water standards, especially regarding nitrates. The legal standard is 10. I don't think I'd want to drink it if it's more than 3 these days, frankly, based on new research. We've got to really think how we handle farm subsidies in a rural development sense of the word. Our subsidies are based on acres, and that means bigger farmers get more money than smaller farmers, which is the opposite of what we need in rural Iowa, which is a lot of people being entrepreneurs with local food systems. And we need desperately antitrust enforcement, and we need to get rid of Citizens United.
Yeah.
A few public service announcements. The state of Iowa does not advertise this, but every private well can be tested every single year at state expense. Wow. They don't tell you that, but if you got a private well, you should get your water tested every single year, not once. Every single year. I did this. And I have found by doing that, I have a couple different wells at various properties, and Every 3 years, a rat falls in one of my wells somehow. I mean, if nothing else, don't you want to know that? Get your water tested every year. Call your county sanitarian. Or in some places, they call it your public health department. Every year, do this. Only 10% of Iowans test their well. So get your grandma out in the farm to do it too. And my second one is, we can talk about ag pollution's a really big problem, but Iowa has an equally big problem, which is radon. Radon, it's really bad for you, and it's a huge problem in Iowa. It's clearly one of the reasons our cancer is above national averages. And this is what you got to do about that. I've just done this myself, so I'm an expert at it. You get on Amazon or whatever, and you can buy a kit, and you leave it on your counter for a week, and then you mail the kit in, and that costs about $30. Or you can get a handheld device that measures it, and that costs about $80. If you get that after you've measured it and know you're okay or you're not, then you pass that on to your sister or your club, or you somehow keep that circulating in the community, because tons of people don't know they have this problem, including me, until very recently. So please check your radon in your house, no matter where you live in Iowa. It's a problem. The end. Questions?
Liz, when you had that high water, did your neighbor change their farming practice to mimic you?
They stopped fall plowing. They spring disc now instead of fall plow. That was an improvement.
I don't have a question so much as I wanted to underscore what you were talking about. I have a friend who is actually kind of related to me, and we went and took one of these strips, these nitrate watch strips. He lives out in the country of Potawatomi County, just south of a very long line of fields all around him, and his well was 12 plus. He lost his wife about 3 years ago to cancer, and now he's being treated for cancer. So it is a very real thing.
You said Pot County?
Yeah, Pot County.
I have two things. One is a comment. Right now you can get a free radon test kit. If you go to the American Lung Association's Iowa radon page, you can order a free test kit directly. I'll just say it again. American Lung Association Iowa radon page, and they will mail it to you with instructions to send that back in.
Is Iowa the only state singled out on their page?
This is a particular page for Iowa.
Oh,
yeah. When NWD was invited to attend that CAS event for cancer, they were actually passing them out and giving them out for free as a public health announcement. Yeah.
And if you live here in Atlantic or in the surrounding area, you can go to the Atlantic Public Library, and I don't know if you can go to other public libraries in Cass County or not, but Cass Health purchased a whole bunch of radon test kits, and so you can go there and get one for free.
Yes. You can check it out.
I have one right now that
Oh,
I
it's
got
on
in Griswold Library.
Griswold Library. Okay, yeah, so you might be able to find free radon kits. Liz, I have a question for you that came in through the text message.
Okay.
Are Iowans aware of the lie the legislature tells when they use the phrase nutrient reduction strategy?
I don't know what, in general, Iowans are, but I can speak a little about the nutrient reduction strategy. It's a list of 10 practices applied in 10 ways to reduce nitrate and phosphorus. That's what the nutrient reduction strategy is. It was designed to stop Gulf hypoxia pollution. nitrates and phosphorus. It's a really silly report, in my opinion. First of all, it doesn't reach any real conclusions. It's 10 practices applied in 10 different ways, and there was never a conclusion in the report. What is the plan? Which practices in which spots? It never got down to that kind of a plan or a timetable. It has a fair number of ridiculous things in it. My favorite ridiculous example is that it has, one of the 10 practices is a nutrient stabilizer on fall applied nitrogen. And you put something to kill the bugs, so they won't eat the nitrogen in the fall. Every other state's nutrient reduction strategy says, don't put fertilizer on in the fall. Hello. Another example of just some of the things that are a little silly about it is none of the practices are every farmer's favorite first, very important conservation practice, which is waterways. You go to a eroding farm, the first thing a farmer who's trying to do better will do is put in some waterways on their farm. That isn't a practice, because they don't have any data on what waterways do for you. In the various applications of the scenarios, like the edge of field practices, which farmers like best because they think the taxpayer will pay all the costs and they won't have to do anything. Those practices involve hundreds and hundreds of thousands of constructed bioreactors and wetlands. And we're, after something like 14 years, still measuring those practices in the hundreds, not the hundreds of thousands. So it's not really a plan, which is really why it's really offensive. We don't have a plan in Iowa. By the way, in the Norris report, we do propose that there be a watershed coordinating entity of some sort that will oversee the water quality monitoring, look back on learning practices, and keep drilling down on where is pollution coming from, and targeting the practices to where they really are effective. One of our problems is we have conservation dollars sort of smeared all over. I'm the best getter of conservation dollars you ever met. But I'm probably not the worst polluter you ever met. You know, we really need to be smarter about where we spend those dollars, and watershed authorities can help organize that.
I have a question, a follow-up on radon. So if you have high radon, because I know a friend had that, does anybody know who does mitigation in southwest Iowa?
The one who did ours is out of business.
There's one we called, there was a number on the test kit, actually referred you to a website. They came out of Omaha, and for our little house, it was $7,000.
Holy Mary.
But, yeah, that's
It's better than lung cancer.
better than lung cancer, yeah.
Ours was 1,500.
Oh, wow. Who'd you-
The company that's now out of business.
Thank you, Liz, for all this information. It always reinforces what we've known and what we've been studying. But, our Secretary of Agriculture currently is writing about the number of cover crops, cover crop acres there are in Iowa. But I don't know the exact figures, maybe you do, about how many acres there are and how many acres we could have in cover crops, and how farmers get really discouraged about it because we're having droughts and we're having dry times in the fall. So and then some farmers think that that's the answer to it all. Do you have a opinion or statement on cover crops?
Well, for what they say the number of cover crop acres are at what the state says, I think they lie, frankly. I think that the last USDA data is a lot more indicative of what, because the state's now saying I can't remember, it equates to about 13%, 12% of our crop acres is what the state says we have. I suspect we have more like 7% of our crop acres in cover crops. What else can I tell you about cover crops? I believe in cover crops. I believe they pay. I don't think it happens all at once, but I think the picture of good soil health, which is my farm, that kind of soil, it pays. If you're a farmer here, something I've done that just really helped me as a farmer is I did a linear regression analysis of county average yields for corn for the last 20 years. And I looked at my yields for the last 20 years, and I drew a line, linear regression analysis, on how am I doing on my yields compared to county average? That's a great question a farmer should ask themselves. And I did this analysis on 2,000 acres and 8 parcels, and 7 out of 8 parcels, about 1,700 acres out of 2,000 acres, I gained yield, and I attribute it on county, compared to county average, I attribute it to cover crops. I think, and about half of it gaining an average of 3 bushels a year on county average. After my 20-year analysis, I'm getting 20 bushels more a year compared to the county than I used to. That pays, that's huge money. I'm getting the yield. But even if you don't believe that it does, you think it costs money to have cover crops, I ask the people here, do you think your house insurance pays? How many times have you got a good rate of return on your house insurance? Never, you hope. You never want to collect on it. But I showed you the picture of my neighbor's field. 4 hours. His field is ruined forever in 4 hours. Should he have had that insurance on his field? You bet. Even if it doesn't pay, it's insurance. Our climate change reality is real, and it's bad. These heavy rains, they can ruin a farm. Fast.
Just a comment on cover crops. I'm a landowner who cash rents out our field, and our renter wasn't interested in doing cover crops, but we organized them ourselves. And with the conservation dollars you're talking about, we're ahead just putting them in. About a penny an acre, but but you can get them paid for. So how do we educate people that
Yes, that's where we
you
were
not
at.
only
Darwin,
short
what was
term
our
but long
cost?
term, you're gonna come out ahead.
We do that, we actually,
This is my farming significant other.
we do a lot of flex rent, lease rents, and then we actually do a 50-50 cost share with our tenants. And in there, we throw all the cost share, all the expense, and then we average it out. Last year, our expense per acre was $1.36 for the landlord and $1.36 for the tenant.
Wow.
My opinion, and it yielded 82 bushel beans, and the year before 265 bushel corn.
Wow.
Last year, our flex rent was $340 an acre. Tell me it doesn't pay.
Oh, are you conventional farmers? Just asking.
No-till cover
No-till.
crops, and I would not put it in. And how we got there was, how does your tenant get there? Well, first off, if he's not gonna do it, go find a new tenant.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's your brother, I don't care if it's your sister, I don't care if it's your son-in-law. If they won't do the practice, get a new tenant that will. Then what we did to implement it was we incorporated an addendum in our leases. So the first year, and we assumed that you were gonna see benefits in 5 years. I think that's actually more like 3 years. So with first year, we said, landlord, you pay 90%, tenant, you pay 10%. Then it went 80-20, down to 50-50. And at the end of 5 years, we were doing this with multiple tenants. At the end of 5 years, we allowed our tenants to try to argue me out of it, and not one of them came up and said, we want to change, because they were seeing the economic benefits.
Just one slight, for the recipe of 90, 10, 90, 80, 70. The first year you go to your tenant and say, it's gonna be next year, and so this year, you go try it. You can't ask a farmer to go from 0 to they're gonna do all their farming, or even a whole field maybe with cover crops when they don't know what they're doing, how to do it. There's a learning curve.
Yeah.
So first say to your tenant, next year. So this year, you go out and figure it out. I'll pay for whatever cover crops you want to do this year. Just try it, get going. Next year, we're going to require it on the whole farm, and we'll pay 90, you pay 10.
And now they're starting to increase the subsidy. So like Practical Farmers of Iowa has a subsidy. Usually the state has a subsidy.
Yeah, we better go on to
NRCS is
shutting it down here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for the experience, the generations of experience that you have. Is your method of transitioning to your tenant, is that available like on White Rock's website or something, or is there
No, you
somewhere?
heard it here.
I'm just really interested to hear from you, and not just me, I know all of us are, as we made this list of questions. I'm really interested to know what you think we might be celebrating when we gather for our 2nd year anniversary.
Double the members.
Double the members, Shirlene said. I think that's a wonderful goal. I wonder why you're here supporting us. What are your reasons for being here?
Grandchildren.
Your grandchildren. Grandchildren. Yeah, I agree with that. Kim and I have that in common. We have a little guy. I know a lot of people do. Why else are you here?
For the cake.
Imagine how fresh it would have tasted 2 weeks ago. I know.
You might take that cake home with you. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, you can take some cake home with you if you answer the questions. Okay. All right. Okay. How about a 30-year vision? What should Iowa look like in 30 years?
Less playing at the beach.
Oh, kids playing at the beach. Which beach in particular are you
All
thinking
of
of?
them.
All the
Prairie
beaches.
Rose.
Prairie Rose. That was that DNR, one of the DNR hearings that we went to about the algal blooms and that treatment. Yeah, actually, Scott was there at the time. I didn't get a chance to see him, but we didn't know I was going to recruit you into the fold. Well, you came to us. Yeah.
More diverse crops in our fields.
In 30 years, more diverse crops, kids playing on the beaches. What else? What does Iowa look like? Denise.
They were feeding Iowans.
We're feeding Iowans. We import 95% of our food in Iowa.
Less crops, more tall grass prairies.
Less crops, more tall grass prairie. Great, I love this. What else?
More
Fish in the river.
Fish in the river. Fish in the river.
More humans, less robots.
More humans, less robots. What about you, Jim?
All school children in Iowa fed free lunches with Iowa created foods.
Oh, did everyone hear that? All Iowa school children fed free lunches by food produced in Iowa. That is wonderful. Okay, oh, I love this, it's so good. Okay,
50% lower cancer rate.
50% lower cancer rates. That sounds great. Okay, now, let's bring it back 25 years. 5-year goals. How can the Nishnabotna Water Defenders help to work toward the vision that we just had of 30 years?
Legislative involvement.
Legislative involvement. And how does that work?
We all have to talk to our legislators and,
Some new legislators.
well, so there's that too.
Run for office. So we agree that we have a candidate in the room. All right. Do you want to say anything? No, drink the water we vote for sure. Okay, so that's one of the ways we can help, is we work towards talking to our legislators. A very, very prescient and impending action we can all do is tomorrow night, and this is on the homepage of our website. On April 1st is a lobby call-in day to the Iowa legislature for this. I've spoken about it, Liz has mentioned it. We've heard about the statewide water quality monitoring sensor network that is going dark July 1st. What's that?
Oh, flood the phone.
Yeah, flood the phone lines. Thanks, Denise, you were throwing your voice. I didn't hear where that came from. So what's happening is tomorrow night. It's a Zoom call. Please hop on it if you can. There's a registration link. Actually, it's hosted by the IARA, that group that asked us to join with them. But this is a statewide coalition of groups that are working to flood the legislature with calls. The pre-briefing is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. It's going to have Adam Shriver of the Harkin Institute, and it's going to have John Norris, who we've spoken about a lot today, giving you some background information on the sensor networks and what we can do to get the Iowa legislature to move that funding and increase the funding so that we can have much better monitoring, real-time data, and keep that network alive. So this is really important. If you could do that, it would be a wonderful action and you'd be really proud of yourself. And that will help lead us to the things that we're talking about that we want to happen in 5 years and in 30 years. Anything else for 5-year goals?
More water testing.
More water testing, more community science.
Community.
Yeah, I love it. Love that. What about you, Tony?
Well, I'm not a farmer, I really don't know anything about agriculture, but I'm a tree lover, and I'm so glad somebody else asked about trees. And my understanding of history were the hedgerows and the windbreaks. I would love to see, not only in Iowa, I'm a Nebraskan, but let's bring those windbreaks back and encourage farmers to plant more trees.
Stop killing them.
Yes.
Okay, more trees. I've actually had a dream about planting, having brigades of water defenders planting 50-foot buffer strips around every waterway. Farm creeks and the river. We're just planting trees and forbs and bushes and all the things. Yes.
More school children involved in working with cleanups and nature things.
Love it. Yes. More youth involved in all of these things. Very good. Anybody else on that?
Is there an annual Earth Day event yet for this group?
We have not had an annual Earth Day event. We did partner last year with that Red Oak one in April when we first started.
That was a lot of kids actually from the school, and they came and helped Jody clean up the park and test the water in the park. They love getting out of school for free. So.
Yeah. One other thing is, I'm going to pick which question because I know we're running out of time. You already know we want you to be involved, and we will take any skills you share to offer. It's going to take all of us and all of our skill sets to do such things. Love to know what you think we can improve on, what we can continue to do. But I'd really like to hear what you think the emerging issues are that we need to prepare for. Emily.
That's okay, I can go. Over the next 10 years, we're gonna see a lot of, over the next decade, we're gonna see a ton of farmland changing hands as older farmers go out. And so I think we need to focus some efforts on catching those people that are inheriting land or buying land and getting them involved in understanding how important this is and the options that they have. I feel like a lot of times we feel like we don't have any options.
Good.
And are not a number of the new landowners going to be women?
Women landowners. Yes. What other emerging issues can you think of that we need to prepare for?
changing attitudes from we've always done it this way.
Yes. Slave the sacred cows.
Right.
Mary.
Yeah. Increasing climate change, extreme weather.
Preparedness.
It's just gonna get worse.
Climate change preparedness. Yes.
Population growth.
Population growth.
Urbanization of what's now rural.
Urbanization of rural areas. Okay. Terry.
Well, that's something that ties to, I mean, the inability of people to be able to buy farmland is directly tied to the amount of subsidies that are poured out when you get investors buying farmland to get a guaranteed return on these subsidies. Then you have a program, you have a problem with a lot of those folks, and like, you know, it kicks it up and up. So as you reduce the subsidies, it takes the incentive out for non-farmers to be purchasing land we can grow food on. So that's another way to look at it. And there's successful places they did it in New Zealand completely. They used to war sheep in New Zealand than there were people. And they killed the subsidies. Everybody went, oh, you're going to kill farming, blah, blah, blah. It had the opposite effect. It made them become more efficient to produce to the markets that existed instead of the other way around, to create markets for an overproduction problem, which is the least efficient way to do anything.
Okay, I really want to thank you for your participation. Thank you for being here. I'm just so grateful because it's not a blizzard and it's 75 and you're here. Okay, so really you've heard from like so many wonderful people. Like I just feel so much gratitude for having just so many heavy hitters in this room. I can't believe it. Okay, so anyway, please see us for water testing. We want to get you out there. I really want everyone calling the legislature on 4-1. Flood them for that sensor network. It's 32 cents per Iowan to keep that, and actually improve it and keep it alive. 32 cents a year. That's it. And I'm going to let Kevin close us out. So if you'll just give him a little more of your attention. Here's Kevin.
And the good news is, yes, I'm here to close this out. So, but I want to take a moment. Wow, what a day. Give yourselves a hand, honestly. For all the bad news out there, I really have a good feeling. I really feel like we have the people here right now to start that, what do you call it? The catalyst to start maybe a new day.
I think I quoted you.
I think we have everybody here to do what we need to do right now. So, I did have a couple thoughts here. I don't believe we have any enemies. I don't even think we have any opposition. I think we are the opposition. And what we need to do is take care of ourselves. And to do that, we get our wells tested. We
monitor.
we check our homes for radon. Thank you. We get our we test our water, and then we also, as an organization, we grow. And so we're going to have a series of events this summer. Bring somebody with you. Bring somebody young with kids. Have them bring their kids, and we will grow our organization. There is a very definite need for what we're doing right now.
Absolutely.
And so we have history on our side. We have momentum on our side. We're going to grow. Now, one thing about that growth, when we go to talk to other organizations about funding, joining forces with them, they all want to know, how many members do you have? And specifically, how many active members do you have? And they judge that by how many people actually pay an annual membership. Okay. And in our case, that membership has to be meaningful. It's $25 a year, and that funds all the other things that we have going on right now. So thank you all for being here. Be very careful driving home. We need every one of you back. Oh, and for everybody that's watching from home, yes, thank you for staying tuned in, and you can be a member too. Go see our website.
Yeah, join us.